Houston, I would like to report a problem. I have a Stella. Eddie, come here, Eddie. Eddie came into the basement. Come on up. Come here, my beloved. Nope. He escaped. Come here, Eddie. Nope, now I have 2 dogs. Come here, Eddie. Gotcha. I gotcha. Whoa, I don't gotcha. So we have the 90-pound dog. And we have the mini dog. We have all the dogs. And I have been brought a dog toy. So, all right. This is actually story time, not play with the giant red horse toy that you have destroyed time. Can I has it? No. Eddie, come here, my love. Okay. So the dogs haven't seen me all day because I have been down here. And Eddie is my boy. No, I do not care. Okay, we are taking away the dog toy. Come here. So, we are calming the dog. And then I'm going to be opening up the story for story time. We may ask that the dogs get evicted because normally they are tired out by this point in the day. Currently, they are not tired out because I have been in the basement the entirety of the day and not playing with them. So, the dogs have been part of CosmoQuest their entire lives. Eddie was found on the side of the road, the same. I don't know why they're digging in the plant, but maybe take the plant away. I'm not sure what was just occurring. All right. So, Eddie was found on the side of the road in August of 2016, right when we were starting CosmoQuest. He has been with us through thick and thin, and then Stella was acquired just a couple of weeks before I started my job at Planetary Science Institute. That was a bad failure to remember. Hi there. So these 2 are the CosmoQuest dogs. And normally, when we're doing story time, at the very beginning of story time, everyone comes and joins us in their kigurumi. I am a walrus cuckoo kachu. But this year, the decision was made that we just have our instro and the real fake admin, who are amazing humans, and would have probably been game to go and find kigurumi to wear. But instead, we're just going to enjoy a story tonight and not worry about cosplay and all of that. All right. So the story that we're going to be reading, and I just learned something new. I've been saying Philip K. Dick for years and years and years, and what I didn't know was that K stood for kindred. We're going to be reading Beyond Lies the Wub. And I'm going to need to ask you to stop. Stella, go away. All right. So here we go. With Beyond Lies the Wub. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to make the text bigger. The slovenly wub might well have said, "Many men talk like philosophers and live like fools." They had almost finished with the loading. Outside stood the Optus, his arms folded, his face sunk in gloom. Captain Franco walked leisurely down the gangplank, grinning. "What's the matter?" he said. "You're getting paid for all this." The Optus said nothing. He turned away, collecting his robes. The captain put his boot on the hem of the robe. "Just a minute. Don't go off. I'm not finished." "Oh?" The Optus turned with dignity. "I am going back to the village." He looked towards the animals and birds being driven up the gangplank into the spaceship. "I must organize new hunts." Franco lit a cigarette. "Why not? You people can go out into the veldt and track it all down again. But when we run out halfway between Mars and Earth..." The Optus went out, wordless. Franco joined the first mate at the bottom of the gangplank. "How's it coming?" he said. He looked at his watch. "We got a good bargain here." The mate glanced at him sourly. "How do you explain that?" "What's the matter with you? We need it more than they do." "I'll see you later, Captain." The mate threaded his way up the plank, between the long-legged Martian go-birds, into the ship. Franco watched him disappear. He was just starting up after him, up the plank toward the port, when he saw it. My God. He stood staring, his hands on his hips. Peterson was walking along the path, his face red, leading it by a string. "I'm sorry, Captain," he said, tugging at the string. Franco walked toward him. "What is it?" The wub stood sagging, its great body settling slowly. It was sitting down, its eyes half shut. A few flies buzzed about its flank, and it switched its tail. It sat. There was silence. "It's a wub," Peterson said. "I got it from a native for 50 cents. He said it was a very unusual animal, very respected." "This?" Franco poked the great sloping side of the wub. "It's a pig, a huge dirty pig." "Yes, sir, it's a pig. The natives call it a wub." "A huge pig. It must weigh 400 pounds. Franco grabbed a tuft of the rough hair. The wub gasped, its eyes open, small and moist. Then its great mouth twitched. A tear rolled down the wub's cheek and splashed on the floor. "Maybe it's good to eat." Oh, sorry, wrong voice. "Maybe it's good to eat," Peterson said nervously. "We'll soon find out," Franco said. The wub survived the takeoff, sound asleep in the hold of the ship. When they were out in space and everything was running smoothly, Captain Franco bade his men fetch the wub upstairs so that he might perceive what manner of a beast it was. The wub grunted and wheezed, squeezing up the passageway. "Come on," Jones grated, pulling at the rope. The wub twisted, rubbing its skin off on the smooth chrome walls. It burst into the anteroom, tumbled down in a heap. The men leaped up. "Good Lord," French said. "What is it?" "Peterson says it's a wub," Jones said. "It belongs to him." He kicked at the wub. The wub stood up unsteadily, panting. "What's the matter with it?" French came over. "Is it gonna be sick?" They watched. The wub rolled its eyes mournfully. It gazed around at the men. "I think it's thirsty," Peterson said. He went to get some water. French shook his head. "No wonder we had so much trouble taking off. I had to reset all my ballast calculations." Peterson came back with the water. The wub began to lap gratefully, splashing the men. Captain Franco appeared at the door. "Let's have a look at it." He advanced, squinting critically. "You got this for 50 cents?" "Yes, sir," Peterson said. "It eats almost anything. I fed it on grain and it liked that. And then potatoes and mash. And scraps from the table and milk. It seems to enjoy eating. After it eats, it lies down and goes to sleep. I see, Captain Franco said. Now, as to its taste, that's the real question. I doubt if there's much point in fattening it up anymore. It seems fat enough to me already. Where's the cook? I want him here. I want to find out. The wub stopped lapping and looked at the captain. Really, Captain, the wub said, I suggest we talk of other matters. The room was silent. What was that? Franco said. Just now. The wub, sir, Peterson said. It spoke. They all looked at the wub. What did it say? What did it say? It suggested we talk about other things. Franco walked towards the wub. He went all around it, examining it from every side. Then he came back over and stood with the men. I wonder if there's a native inside it, he said thoughtfully. Maybe we should open it up and have a look. Oh, goodness, the wub cried. Is that all you people can think of? Killing and cutting. Franco clutched his fists. Come out of there. Whoever you are, come out. Nothing stirred. The men stood together, their faces blank, staring at the wub. The wub swooshed its tail. It belched suddenly. I beg your pardon, the wub said. I don't think there's anyone in there, Jones said in a low voice. They all looked at each other. The cook came in. You wanted me, Captain, he said. What's this thing? This is a wub, Franco said. It's to be eaten. Will you measure it and figure out? I think we should have a talk, the wub said. I'd like to discuss this with you, Captain, if I might. I can see that you and I do not agree on some basic issues. The captain took a long time to answer. The wub waited good-naturedly, licking the water from its jowls. Come into my office, the captain said at last. He turned and walked out of the room. The wub rose and padded after him. The men watched it go out. They heard it climbing the stairs. I wonder what the outcome will be, the cook said. Well, I'll be in the kitchen. Let me know as soon as you hear. Sure, said Jones. Sure. The wub eased itself down in the corner with a sigh. You must forgive me, it said. I'm afraid I'm addicted to various forms of relaxation. When one is as large as I. The captain nodded impatiently. He sat down at his desk and folded his hands. All right, he said. Let's get started. You're a wub, is that correct? The wub shrugged. I suppose so. That's what they call us, the natives, I mean. We have our own term. And you speak English? You been in contact with Earthmen before? No. Then how do you do it? Speak English? I'm speaking English. I'm not conscious of speaking anything in particular. I examined your mind. My mind. I studied the contents, especially the semantic warehouse, as I refer to it. I see, the captain said. Telepathy, of course. We are a very old race, the wub said. Very old and very ponderous. It is difficult for us to move around. We can't appreciate that anything so slow and heavy would be at the mercy of more agile forms of life. There was no use in our relying on physical defenses. How could we win? Too heavy to run, too soft to fight, too good-natured to hunt for game. How do you live? Plants, vegetables? We eat almost anything. We're very Catholic, tolerant, eclectic, Catholic. We live and let live. That's how we've gotten along. The wub eyed the captain. And that's why I so violently object to this business about having me boiled. I could see the image in your mind. Most of me in the frozen food locker. Some of me in the kettle. A bit for your pet cat. So you read minds, the captain said. How interesting. Anything else? I mean, what else can you do along those lines? A few odds and ends, the wub said absently, staring around the room. A nice apartment you have here, Captain. You keep it quite neat. I respect life forms that are tidy. Some Martian birds are quite tidy. They throw things out of their nests and sweep them. Indeed, the captain nodded. But to get back to the problem. Quite so. You spoke of dining on me. The taste, I am told, is good. A little fatty, but tender. But how can any lasting contact be established between your people and mine if you resort to such barbaric attitudes? Eat me. Rather, you should discuss questions with me, philosophy, the arts. And the captain stood up. Philosophy. It might interest you to know that we will be hard put to find something to eat for the next month. An unfortunate spoilage, I know, the wub nodded. But wouldn't it be more in accord with your principles of democracy if we all drew straws or something along that line? After all, democracy is to protect the minority from just such infringements. Now, if each of us casts one vote, the captain walked out of the room. Nuts to you, he said. He opened the door. He opened his mouth. He stood frozen, his mouth wide, his eyes staring, his fingers still on the knob. The wub watched him. Presently he padded out of the room, edging past the captain. It went down the hall, deep in meditation. The room was quiet. So you see, the wub said, we have a common myth. Your mind contains many familiar myth symbols. Ishtar, Odysseus. Peterson sat silently, staring at the floor. He shifted in his chair. Go on, he said. Please go on. I find your Odysseus a figure common to the mythology of most self-conscious races. As I interpret it, Odysseus wanders as an individual, aware of himself as such. This is the idea of separation from family and country. The process of individualization. But Odysseus returns to his home. Peterson looked out the port window at the stars, endless stars, burning intently in the empty universe. Finally, he goes home. As must all creatures, the moment of separation is a temporary period, a brief journey of the soul. It begins, it ends. The wanderer returns to land and race. The door opened. The wub stopped, turning its great head. Captain Franco came into the room, the men behind him. They hesitated at the door. Are you all right? French said. Do you mean me? Peterson said, surprised. Why me? Franco lowered his gun. Come over here, he said to Peterson. Get up and come here. There was silence. Go ahead, the wub said. It doesn't matter. Peterson stood up. What for? It's an order. Peterson walked to the door. French caught his arm. What's going on? Peterson retched loose. What's the matter with you? Captain Franco moved towards the rub. The wub looked up from where it lay in the corner, pressed against the wall. It is interesting, the wub said, that you are obsessed with the idea of eating me. I wonder why. Get up, Franco said. If you wish, the wub rose, grunting. Be patient. It is difficult for me. It stood, gasping, its tongue lolling foolishly. Shoot it now, French said. For God's sake, Peterson exclaimed. Jones turned to him quickly, his eyes gray with fear. You didn't see him, like a statue, standing there, his mouth open. If we hadn't come down, he'd still be there. Who, the captain? Peterson stared round. But he's all right now. They looked at the wub, standing in the middle of the room, its great chest rising and falling. Come on, Franco said. Out of the way. The men pulled aside toward the door. You are quite afraid, aren't you? The wub said. Have I done anything to you? I'm against the idea of hunting. All I have done is try to protect myself. Can you expect me to rush eagerly to my death? I am a sensible being like yourselves. I was curious to see your ship, learn about you. I suggested to the native. The gun jerked. See, Franco said, I thought so. The wub settled down, panting. It put its paw out, pulling its tail around it. It is very warm, the wub said. I understand that we are close to the jets, atomic power. You have done many wonderful things with it, technically. Apparently, your scientific hierarchy is not equipped to solve moral, ethical. Franco turned to the men, crowding behind him, wide-eyed, silent. I'll do it. You can watch. French nodded. Try to hit the brain. It's no good for eating. Don't lay at the chest. If the rib cage shatters, we'll have to pick bones out. Listen, Peterson said, licking his lips. Has it done anything? What harm has it done? I'm asking you. And anyhow, it's still mine. You have no right to shoot it. It doesn't belong to you. Franco raised his gun. I'm going out, Jones said, his face white and sick. I don't want to see it. Me too, French said. The men straggled out, murmuring. Peterson lingered at the door. It was talking to me about myths, he said. It wouldn't hurt anyone. He went outside. Franco walked toward the wub. The wub looked up slowly. It swallowed. A very foolish thing, it said. I am sorry that you want to do it. There is a parable that your Savior related. It stopped, staring at the gun. Can you look me in the eye and do it? The wub said. Can you do that? The captain gazed down. I can look you in the eye, he said. Back on the farm we had hogs, dirty razorback hogs. I can do it. Staring down at the wub, into the gleaming, moist eyes, he pressed the trigger. The taste was excellent. They sat glumly around the table, some of them hardly eating at all. The only one who seemed to be enjoying himself was Captain Franco. "More?" he said, looking around. "More? And some wine, perhaps?" "Not me," French said. "I think I'll go back to the chart room." "Me too." Jones stood up, pushing his chair back. "I'll see you later." The captain watched them go. Some of the others excused themselves. "What do you suppose the matter is?" the captain said. He turned to Peterson. Peterson sat staring down at his plate, at the potatoes, the green peas, and at this thick slab of tender, warm meat. He opened his mouth. No sound came. The captain put his hand on Peterson's shoulder. "It is only organic matter now," he said. "The life essence is gone." He ate, spooning up the gravy with some bread. "I myself love to eat. It is one of the greatest things that a living creature can enjoy. Eating, resting, meditation, discussing things." Peterson nodded. 2 more men got up and went out. The captain drank some water and sighed. "Well," he said, "I must say that this was a very enjoyable meal. All the reports I had heard were quite true. The taste of wub, very fine. But I was prevented from enjoying this pleasure in times past." He dabbed at his lips with his napkin and leaned back in his chair. Peterson stared dejectedly at the table. The captain watched him intently. He leaned over. "Come, come," he said. "Cheer up. Let's discuss things." He smiled. "As I was saying before, I was interrupted. The role of Odysseus in the myths." Peterson jerked up, staring. "To go on," the captain said. "Odysseus, as I understand him." And we're about to get a raid from Astro Canuck just as I finish this really super weird story. Hello, Astro Canuck. Hello, Raiders. Welcome to the last segment of tonight. We're back tomorrow of our Hangout-a-thon. The story that we just read was, and I'm going to screw up. Why are you saying my session has expired? Oh, we have a new total. I will update the new total to everyone in just a moment. I have confused my iPad. So we have just finished reading Beyond Lies the Wub by Philip K. Dick. Yeah, Broken Symmetry. He wubbed it a lot. This was one of several stories identified by On the Diagonal as potentially good for this evening. It was one of 2 that I was in between trying to figure out what to read. And you came in just as I hit the end of it. And this was a really weird story because basically it shows that human beings will eat anything. I mean, really, that's all there is to be said about it, is we will eat anything if we're hungry. And we don't tend to look on things with the care and caution one might wish for. So yeah. There are so many different things I could say, but one of the fascinating things about this story was the concept that when a human being encounters something that reminds it of food, it can show them all the intelligence in the world, and we're still going to eat it. But in this case, the life form got the final say because by being eaten, it was able to transfer, or maybe it had before it was eaten, transferred its consciousness into the life form thus devouring the devourer. I don't know if I said that coherently. Yeah. So, what were your thoughts? What were your ideas? Um, I need to scroll the chat. I need to figure out how to scroll the chat. I missed something. Define can eat. Are there more things we can't eat or more things we can eat? I think there's probably more things that we can't eat in this world, but that won't stop us from trying, I feel is an unfortunate truth. Yeah, yeah, it's true. Um, to quote the prophet Weird Al, just eat it. Yeah, yes. Um, so on the diagonal is clarifying that he psychically transferred his self. So it wasn't that he was transferred when he was consumed, which was how I originally read it.
Or that might be in response to physically eat it. No,
that's true. That's true. So for those of you who are just joining us, welcome. I'm Dr. Pamela Gay. I am the director of CosmoQuest, a community for learning and doing science, and we are supported through Patreon, through donations, and this weekend is our big fundraiser of the year. Our goals are directly below me. We hit our first goal, which was to maintain everything as it is exactly right now. We needed to make $5,400, and we did it. We did it. We are in fact currently. Oh, I lost my mouse again. We are currently sitting at 5,658. When we make it, and I'm just going to say it optimistically, when we make it to 7.5 thousand, that means that I can bring back the newsletter. And when we make it to 10,000, and that's for the entire year, and when we make it to 10,000, that means that Allie can get a new production can get a new production computerful. I'm just going to keep saying that. I'm reading the word wubnummerful on the screen. I need to close my eyes and not look at that while speaking. If we hit 10,000, Allie can get a new production computerful. I give up. I give up. All right. My brain has lost it.
$7 away from another palindrome.
We are $7 away from another palindrome, has been pointed out. So if someone donates $7 through, if you hit !donate, the link will show up. We will have a palindrome.
If only one person donates 7.
It's true. It's true. This has happened many times. And it's true. Computerful, a wonderful computer. I love that. Best community ever. So we are currently in hour 13 of day 1. And it's been a good day. We've had all sorts of panels, all sorts of discussions. We always end the evening with story time. I can read another story if folks would want, or I can talk more about, I don't know, you can ask me anything. So these are your choices. I feel like someone needs to throw up a poll. I don't know how to do that from here. And admin's on it, I think.
Not supported on mobile.
Sorry. Yes, this is Felix. This is Felix's youngling. I forgot the name of the youngling. Someone in stream named the youngling. I forgot it makes noise.
The dogs
And suddenly there is 120 pounds of Australian Shepherd. I just thought the eyes were going to light up. That's all I knew was the eyes were going to light up. Stella is deeply upset here. Deeply, deeply upset. Come on up all the way. All the way. Yes, yes. So this is Stella. She is smaller of the two Australian Shepherds. She's also part terrier and behaves accordingly. She has her own emote from my personal channel, Starstrider. This is my day job. Our community, we put together the Escape Velocity Space News show. Can someone throw up the command to show our YouTube link? I think it's just ! YouTube. She is beautiful. She has bright blue eyes that she's refusing to show you right now. So we have the Escape Velocity Space News podcast. We have the 365 Days of Astronomy podcast. We are affiliated with the Astronomy Cast podcast. We do citizen science projects. Those are mostly funded by NASA. All the servers to do everything we do are funded through our community. Yeah. So these are my doggos that apparently feel the need to protect me from screaming dinosaur skeletons. And I also have an angry hamster here. It is one of a pair of angry hamsters. Hi, can I have my arm back? I want to check the donations. I do. And you are completely put upon right now. I have panicked the dog. All right, we are still at 5,658. And no one has said if you just want me to ask anything or read another story. So either ask anything or ask for another story. Both are possible. We weren't going to stream too much longer, so we have 20 more minutes this evening. And then tomorrow we have an entire slate of new things. And tomorrow we are celebrating. I have 1 vote for a story. Can I get 2 more votes for a total of 3 or more votes for a story? Angry Hamster is watching is an old clip. Oh, wow. That's amazing. All right. Folks want a story is what I'm seeing. All right. So, Stella, my love, doggo, my dog. All right. You're just going to pin my arm down. I need to open the iPad. And it doesn't facial recognize on your face. Or on my face when your face is in front of my face. All right. So this story, I see my name in big letters. What is the best piece of information you learned? I just lost. There's my mouse. Hello, Moo Hoodles. Hello. What is the best piece of information you learned today? I did see her comet pic. It was everything. So the best piece of information I learned today, I remember specifically, was that Philip K. Dick's middle name is Kindred. I don't know why it's just such a sweet name, and I didn't know it was a name. And so that brings me joy. I like facts that bring me joy. All right, so we have a request for another story. If you want more stories like this in the evening on my personal channel, Starstrider with a Y, I do story time on basically Monday through Thursday school nights. So this story is Where Are You, Mr. Biggs? It's by Nelson S. Bond. That gangling frame, that easy, fluent grin, lost in the nameless depths of the crypts of space. We're supposed to be an Earth-Mars lugger, but when we got to Mars Central Spaceport, the bug pounder there gave me this solargram from Terra. It said, "Proceed Uranus immediately. Pick up cargo, gallium." So I shoved a frantic from the old man over the ship audio, and pretty soon he came lumbering up to my radio room, picking his teeth and scowling like a man with only half a tummy full of victuals. "It's a fine state of affairs," he snarled, "when a skipper can't even finish his dinner in peace. Well, what's the matter now, Sparks? You seeing pink rhinoceroses again? 'Cause if you are—" "I'm not," I told him with quiet dignity. "And they aren't pink rhinos. They're lavender lobsters. And anyway, I haven't had a drink for months. Or maybe it's since yesterday. Anyhow, here's the grief." And I gave him the wire. He read it. Read it. "Your Aunt Nellie," he screamed out loud. "Uranus," he bellowed. "This crate make that trip? They must be stark staring mad." "Them," I agreed. "Or me. Flip a coin. What shall I do, Skipper? Tell him we can't do it? Tell him—" "No, wait a minute." Capt. Hansen's brow looked like a freshly plowed field. I knew why. The Saturn is an old lugger. And by old, I do mean ancient. It was built before the turn of the century, and by all laws of logic and reason, should have been taken off the spaceways long ago. Only that Cap Hansen and our screwball first mate, Lancelot Biggs, had demonstrated time and time again, and in startling, devious ways, that the old scow was still spaceworthy. But if the Saturn were removed from active service, the chances were 10 to 1 that Hansen would be junked with her, which was reason numero uno, and a damned good one, why the skipper couldn't risk refusing this order. "We'll go, Sparks," he said slowly. "We've got to. But I could wring his scrawny neck, blast his jets." I didn't have to ask whom he meant. Scrawny neck would mean only one inmate of our void perambulating asylum. Lancelot Biggs. Genius and crackpot. Scarecrow and sage, and soon to become son-in-law to the skipper. I said, "But why blame Biggs for this, Skipper? Is it his fault if the Home Office has gone squirrely?" "It is," grumbled Hansen savagely. "I should never have agreed to let Diane marry him. He started this mess at my house. Colonel Bromfee and him was having dinner with me, and Biggs told Bromfee all about that new velocity intensifier he invented." I shuddered. "You mean the gadget which got us all bollocksed up in a negative universe till Hank Cleaver came from the past to get us out?" "That's it. Well, he told Bromfee about it, bragged that it would make the Saturn the fastest ship in the ether. And now," Hansen groaned, "just because he shut off his big face, we've to push this leaky old tin can to Uranus." I said consolingly, "Well, maybe everything will be all right, Skipper. I admit Mr. Biggs is a bit of a wacky pot, but he pulled us out of plenty of tough spots before, like the time he thwarted Red Hack and his pirate crew, and the time he beat the Slipstream." Hansen stared at me somberly. "Nope, I guess you ain't. You couldn't have. I said, which? Couldn't have what, sir? You mustn't have seen Mr. Biggs on his shuttle. It was the first time I had realized it, but he was right. And that was funny because Mr. Biggs and I were old buddies. We were bunkmates once, even. I said, well, lift my grabs. Come to think of it, I haven't. Why, Skipper? I guess maybe it's on account of his busy planning to be married so soon? Hanson made sounds like a man being garroted. Marriage! Don't talk to me about marriage. Bert, what does marriage do to a man? Marriage, I replied promptly, makes the mare go, oh, no, that's money, isn't it? I give up, sir. What? It's supposed, boiled Hanson, to make him settle down. Only it ain't. Not in Big's case. It's having just the opposite effect, making him flighty as a coot. Lancelot ain't been worth a tinker's darn on this trip. He can't do a single thing right. Remember our takeoff, Sparks, from Long Island Port? The one where we lifted grabs 2 full minutes before schedule. I finished. Don't I just. I almost did a swan dive through the aft bulkhead. Why didn't he? And he also plotted the course that took us 9 degrees off trajectory. And he heaved the ship into a Van Maiden spiral by signaling for a double jet port blast in mid-space. And he... Hanson paused, panting with wrath. But why go on? The point is, the very thought of marriage has ruined him. And we can't depend on him to help us with this assignment. And Uranus is a long way from here. A long way. I winced. I said, look, Skipper, must you say it that way? With icicles in your voice, I mean? But orders is orders. We lifted grabs as commanded at 11:20 Martian constant time. That's 3x9 solar relative, and pointed our prow toward a spot in space where, some 1.5 billion odd miles away, Uranus was lounging about a wan and distant sun like a gigantic snowball. That is, we attempted to point our prow in that direction. Cap Hanson's astrogation gave a cropper on this problem. He called me to the control turret. He asked, Sparks, have you seen him? You mean Mr. Biggs? No, sir. Well, go find him. In the first place, none of us except him know how to chart to intersect Uranus's orbit. And in the second place, we don't know how to operate that crazy velocity intensifier of his and fretfully. And in the third place, I don't like this in the first place. So I made a tour of the ship and found him where I should have looked first, in his own cabin, raptly fondling a cabinet photograph of Diane Hanson, soon to be Biggs. He glanced up as I entered, and his phenomenal Adam's apple and oracular elevator, no, it does say escalator if I ever saw one, bobbed in greeting. Hello, Sparks, he said dreamily, and held out the picture for my inspection. She's lovely, isn't she? I said, don't look now, Mr. Biggs, but that cheery little noise you've been ignoring in the audio buzzer behind your elbow, it's for you. The skipper wants you topside. Biggs looked startled. Me? But there must be some mistake. I'm off duty until tomorrow morning. Guess again, I told him. It so happens that you are the only officer, around here who knows how to finagle that velocity intensifier of yours. So you're elected. After all, if we're going to Uranus, that got him. He popped off his hip pockets like a thunderbolt from the bluey. What? Uranus? Okay, I said gloomily. And you watch yours. Oh, sorry, that would have been funnier had I read it correctly. What? Uranus? Okay, I said gloomily. And you watch yours. I stared at him, curiously though. What's the matter? Didn't you know? No, of course not, but... His fluid larynx did handsprings. But I can't go to Uranus. I told her I'd be home in 10 days. I said, then she'd better not hold her breath till you get there. You led with your chin, Lieutenant, when you told the president of our beloved corporation about your new invention. He decided to give it a workout, and as near as I can figure, this was what had been worrying me from the start. It will take him about 10 months to get to Uranus, and another 12 to get back. But surprisingly, it was my dejection that snapped Biggs out of his. The impatient bridegroom look disappeared from his eyes, and he grinned. My goodness, no, Sparks. Don't you understand the operation of my velocity intensifier? I'm a bug pounder, I told him. I understand space code and dots and dashes and ampies. And I know 4 languages. That's par for the course. It's really simple. My velocity intensifier is exactly what the name implies. A device that is attached to hyperatomic motors for the purpose of stepping up our normal velocity. It's based on the principle of energy conservation. A series of parallax condensers absorb all waste energy, pass it through multiple amplifiers, rotators, and all points west, I finished. It's no-go, Lieutenant. That's one of the languages I don't talk. Give it to me in words of 1 syllable. How long will it take us to get to Uranus and back? Considering the mean distance of Uranus, answered Biggs quietly, as approximately 1,560,000,000 miles, and if we traveled at our hitherto normal rate of speed 200 miles per hour, it should take us 7,800 hours, or 325 days to reach there, and slightly longer to return to Earth. 10 months, I wailed. I knew it! But, continued Biggs proudly, with this velocity intensifier attachment, our potential speed is restrained by only one factor, the limiting velocity of light, or 186,000 miles per second. In other words, the Saturn is now capable of a top speed of more than 650 million miles per hour? I gasped. Huh. You mean, I said, the trip to Uranus will take only a little more than 2 hours? Biggs smiled complacently. Theoretically, yes. Actually, it will take somewhat longer. You see, we must allow time for acceleration, for a condensation charge to build up on our superchargers before hitting the V1 unit in operation, and for deceleration upon reaching our objective. Also, we are forced to remain below the limiting velocity as a measure of safety. Else we may suffer another translation into the negative universe, as we once did before I learned how to control the intensifier. But we will make excellent time. 96 hours should see us landing at New Oslo, and his pale eyes lighted. And gracious, this is wonderful. Diane will be surprised if they're going to let us use the VI unit. We'll return to Earth by way of Uranus in less time than it would ordinarily take to make the Earth-Mars shuttle. But only, I pointed out, if, when, and as you go make that gadget gadge. Well, we're gnawing the Affordadupus, Cap Hansen's up there biting his fingernails to the knuckle. So shall we join the laddies? So he patted Diane's picture goodbye, and we went. Like I figured, Hansen was practically meat for the loony bin by the time we reached the bridge. He manhandled Briggs avidly and propelled him to the plot table. "Where have you been, Briggs?" he demanded. "No, don't tell me now. Get going on them figures. They don't much make sense to me no wise. And when we do turn on that thingamajigger of yourn, Bert, where'd you find him?" "Shut up, you blabbermouth. Don't you know better than to talk when a space officer is cogitating? Can I help, Biggs?" The one-man word storm was deafening, but it didn't seem to faze Biggs. He plunked himself down at the pilot's desk, scribbled for a while, and came up with an orbit chart for second-mate Dick Todd, seated at the control board. Then he heaved a volley of orders over the audio to Chief Engineer Garrity. And that was that. He relaxed. The skipper said nervously, Is that all?" "That's all, sir," said Biggs. The old man looked dubious. "I don't hear nothing unusual," he said. "You will in a minute," said Biggs. "Ah, there it is now." And darned if it didn't. One minute my ears hummed with the familiar drone of the hippotamics. The next, a weird and piercing whine rose in high, shrill crescendo, torturing our eardrums for a brief instant, until it lost itself in an oblivion of supersonic inaudibility. That was all. No moment of oppressive weight as if it were lifting gravs at extra G's, no thunderous bellow of rockets, no anything. The ship rode easily, freely. It must have looked disappointed. I must have looked disappointed. To Biggs I said, "Too bad, sir." "Eh, Sparks?" "Too bad it didn't work," I said. Biggs chuckled. "But it did work, Sparks. We're now traveling at a speed in excess of 500 million miles per hour." Cap Hansen gulped and looked green. "Five?" "That's right, sir. If you don't believe me, take a peek through the view panes." I moved to the fore wall, slid back the metal slide that covered the quartzite view pane. Space lay before us, but what space? Not the dark, velvety pale, brightly agleam with an infinitude of starry jewels that all spacemen know. This was a blotched, striped, crazy quilted color. Crimson, ochre, emerald, all the hues of the rainbow of the aura, of the aurora. It was beautiful in a mad, fantastic way. There was a fairy magic loveliness to that swift streaming space that fascinated, and at the same time drilled me with dread. Hansen's eyes bulged and his voice was fearful. We've done it again, Biggs. Busted clean out of the universe into something else." "No, sir. This is our universe, but we're seeing it as no man has ever seen it before. Our speed is so great that we're seeing the landmarks of space with a distorted viewpoint. Our relationship, or should I say relativity, is no longer to Earth or any of its sister planets, but to the great constant, the fundamental motion of the universe itself. Thus, at one and the same time, we see the planets as they are and as they were. They are no longer mere points in space. They're streaks of color." And he grinned. "The stars, too. Pretty, ain't it?" Cap Hansen made weak motions at the viewpane. "Close it, Sparks. It's giving me memes." "So if you're right, Biggs, then what? How do we know when we get to Uranus? or near it, if it's just a streak of color. You must reconcile yourself to an entirely new system of astrogation. Up to this time, pilots have just jetted along until they found their goal, then set course for a landing. But with the VI unit in operation, we fly blind and set our course by strict mathematical figuring. I have given Mr. Todd a plot chart. 4 days hence, when I cut out the VI unit and return to normal operation on the hypos, we will find Uranus immediately beneath us. And now, if you'll excuse. Wait a minute, said the skipper. Suppose we was to meet up with something in space, like a rogue asteroid. Biggs shrugged. That hazard is neither heightened nor decreased, he said. Our motor beams will still shunt off the smaller ones. And as for the larger, well, you know as well as I that we have never yet found a method of overcoming that danger. It is one of the chances we take when we don space blues. As far as I'm concerned, I'd just as soon not see it coming as to watch it grow larger and larger in the paralens. Well, he was right there. So since Hansen was fresh out of questions, Biggs hoisted hips back to his quarters. My guess is that he went back to Billy doing with Diane's picture. What's yours? I could build this up if I wanted to and offer you a blow-by-blow account of what happened in the next quartet of days, but why bother? The truth is, nothing did. The VI unit continued to chug along like a dream. Our old crate went flashing through space like a quantum with a hot date. Tempest swarmed, and me? I was in seventh heaven. I don't mean fifth or sixth either. This was the easiest shuttle I had ever made. We were traveling so fast, and the VI unit surrounded the Saturn with such a force field that my radio was utterly useless. So I got a vacation with pay. I ate and slept with what you might call monotonous regularity. And I spent all of my working hours curled up with a good, i.e. torrid, book. And at the end of 4 days, Mr. Biggs disconnected his VI unit, as called for on his plot chart, and just like he said, there was Uranus gleaming beneath us. So we landed and spent the night swapping yarns and drinks with the SSP officers garrisoned at New Oslo. Then we took on a hold full of gallium and toodle-o to the refrigerated seventh planet. And this gets tiresome, doesn't it? We accelerated for a day and a half, then Biggs plotted a course, pushed a button, and once again, we were freewheeling through a colorful star-spangled space. Life was swell, and life was wonderful. And if there was any fly in my celestial ointment, it was the fact that after the first week, Lieutenant Romeo Lovesick Biggs got tired of staring at his fiance's image and insisted on strolling up to my turret to tell me, 1, what a wonderful girl she is, 2, how much he missed her, and 3, how he was simply going to die if he didn't see her again soon. Which boring details I had, 1, known for years, once having had a heartthrob for Diane myself, 2, figured from his conversation, and 3, high hope that he would, quietly. So somehow it was the afternoon, ship's time, of the 4th day of the return shuttle, and Biggs was in my turret, not to mention my hair, and I was hearing for the 1000th time about he wasn't worthy of a gal like Diane, when all of a sudden Bells jangled all over the ship. Lights flashed, the danger signal, and my turret audio broke into frantic voice. And the voice was that of the pilot on duty, our third mate, Bud Wilson. "Sparks! Is Biggs there? Yes? Get in here quick and find the old man! Hurry, for God's sake!" We're out of there like a flash. Make that 2 flashes. And pounding through the corridors, up the ramp to the bridge. We met Cap Hansen on the way. The 3 of us burst into the control room to find Wilson tearing his hair and Dick Todd sweating, white-faced, poring over diagrams on the chartboard. Somebody yelled, "What's the matter?" And I can't tell who, because it was probably all of us. And Dick's eyes were haggard pockets in his face. "Jupiter!" he said. "What about it?" yelled the skipper. "Talk, man." Todd shoved the chart at Biggs, pointed with a finger that wobbled. "It's on our trajectory right before us now. We can see it. Look!" And he threw back the shield. And my heart gave an awful lurch. For no longer was the scene before us one of changing iridescent beauty. The entire pane was covered by a gigantic, menacing platter. A monstrous missile of death, the planet Jupiter, dead on our course. Lancelot Biggs' face, which had been keen and alert a moment before, was suddenly a dull blank mask of horror. Strangled words fought their way from his throat. I didn't realize. I forgot all about Jupiter when I plotted the return course." "Forgot?" roared the skipper. "Great comets forgot." Then his wrath died in anxiety. "Do something. Turn off that blasted unit of yours so we can loft over her." But Todd shook his head. "That's no use, Skipper. I thought of that. We're too close. We're caught in her gravitational attraction anyway. Even if we were to turn off Biggs' device, there still wouldn't be time to get the rockets hot." "Lance!" began the skipper. Then, where did he go? Because Biggs had turned suddenly and raced from the room. Fled, still clutching the space chart. Fled, and not a word of advice, regret, or hope. And with him went our last dwindling hope of salvation. Dick Todd's voice was thin. "Maybe he has an idea, sir." Hansen grasped at the thought as a drowning man. "That's it, Todd. He'll pull us out of this. He's never failed us in the past." But even this wishful expression was doomed to swift contradiction. For at that moment the bridge audio flashed, and the voice of a sailor clacked from somewhere below. "Captain Hansen, sir, there's trouble down here. Lieutenant Biggs has violated regulations, sir. He knocked down 2 men and forced his way into the auxiliary lifeboat. He's locked the door, sir. What shall we do?" In the moment of silence that followed, I saw something I hope I shall never be forced to look upon again. I saw a proud man wilt before my eyes. I saw a strong man age 10 years in as many seconds. The man was Captain Hansen. The strength sloughed from his shoulders. Pain burned deep furrows in his eyes. I could barely hear the whisper that crept from his lips. "A coward," he husked. "The man my daughter loves. A coward." And there was nothing I could say to refute the accusation. Lancelot Biggs' action had branded him more damningly than any mere words. A crisis had come, and it had found him wanting. He had deserted his comrades, his ship, and had fled to a lifeboat. Perhaps even now he was getting ready to cast off. In a swift burst of comprehension, I thought I could understand the reason for this last unreasonable defection. Lancelot Biggs had met difficulties before and without flinching. And these things, staunch and noble in themselves, But that was a different Biggs. Love had come into his life now, love and a woman, and all the dreams that happy men dare wish upon. And these things, staunch and noble in themselves, had weakened the moral fiber of Biggs, weakened it to the point where, in the face of danger, nothing was important except that he lived to return to the arms of his loved one. These things I could understand, but I could not forgive them, because love or no love, fear or no fear, a spaceman has a tradition to live up to, and Lancelot Biggs had tossed into the discard the very tradition now upheld by Dick Todd as he said quietly, "Shall I advise the men, sir?" And by Captain Hansen, who said, "Yeah, Todd, and order Garrity to cut off Mr. Biggs' intensifier. We may die, but we can die trying to escape. And a slower speed will give us more time." "Yes, sir," said Todd, and moved towards the audio. But he had barely reached out his hand toward it when a sharp speech rasped from its black throat in remembered tones. "Stop, Todd! Don't give that order, Skipper!" It was the voice of Lancelot Biggs. Captain Hansen had subdued his rage once, but now his face crimsoned, his great hands clenched, and fury was a ponderable vigor in his voice. "You! Where are you?" "In the life skiff," replied Biggs imperturbably. Almost instantly, I thought, as if he knew he were speaking from the only place of possible security in a doomed ship. "Todd, do as I say, and do it fast. There's no time to lose. Tell Chief Garrity to turn the verniers of my VI unit all the way to the red line on the extreme right. Understand?" Once again, Hansen's roar interrupted. "Come back here, you coward, and die with your fellow officers like the man you once pretended to be. What do you mean by skulking in a hideaway, giving orders about my ship?" "Shut up," bellowed Biggs. And it was not just his audacity in speaking thus to a space commander that shocked me. It was the razor-edged intensity of his voice. "Todd, give that order immediately. For God's sake, act. We've no time to lose." Todd's eyes sought mine. He knew as well as I did that the skipper was too furious to give an intelligent command. That's time-limiting velocity, Sparks," Todd choked. "Biggs must be insane. We'll be translated again into the negative universe, and no way to get back, ever." I didn't have to answer. Biggs answered. "I've taken care of that, Todd. Now do as I say. Hurry! Hurry!" And, well, am I a fool? After all, Lancelot Biggs and I are old buddies. Once we were bunkmates, even. There came back to me a measure of confidence I had once had in him, and I nodded to Todd. "Try it, Dick. We've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Give the order." He did. Chief Garrity must have been startled, but he was too good a spaceman to argue an order from the bridge. He said succinctly, "Aye, sir," and then I felt the rocking plunge, the moment of brief, incredible dizziness, of frightful speed being intensified to the limiting velocity of light. My head whirled, but somehow I managed to turn, stare at that ominous view pane. And what I saw there brought a shocked cry from my lips. White, white, dazzling white, then grayness. No other scene than dim and vacant, void, gray, infinite, impenetrable. A glimpse of the lost universe, the matrix negative wherein are flung such mad things as attain a speed beyond that of the limiting velocity. Then crackling across the room agonizedly, "We're clear, Todd! We're through!" And Todd replying dazedly, I don't know what you mean." The chronometer man! Has it touched 9.14? Yes, sir, but we're slipping into the negative, Lance. We've escaped one death to find another. But there was infinite sadness to Lancelot Biggs' denial. No, you're not, Todd. You're going back to your own universe. Now, when you feel the ship lurch, turn the VI unit dial back to where it was before. Ready? Now! And there came, inexplicable, a swift unsteadiness, a lurching halt of the ship. At that instant, Todd spoke to Garrity. Garrity obeyed, and we were once again traveling smoothly on our proper course. But Jupiter, monstrous missile of solid, terrible death, was no longer before us. It was behind us. As we saw that, Captain Hansen laughed aloud, and vast was the joy of that laughter. Relief, happiness, sheer triumph, an apology. And he cried, "You done it, son. Forgive me for doubting you. We're safe. I don't know how, but come on in, boy, and tell us all about it." But there came no answer. Only the echo of our own harsh breathing, the dry scrape of our own feet shuffling restlessly. A new terror loomed sudden in the old man's eyes. "Biggs!" he cried. "Lance, my boy! Lance!" And then it was like the faintest winnowed chafe of sound breathing from far, far away. A voice speaking to us. A voice that said, "Can't come back, Skipper. Sparks will understand. Tell him. Mass energy relationships. And tell Diane I love." That was all. And my brain reeled beneath the import of those fading words. Suddenly I knew. I didn't need to hear Cap Hansen screaming wild orders to the sailors to the aft deck below, nor to hear their answer. "He's not here, sir. He cast off the auxiliary a moment or so ago." I knew. Later I told them. My explanation was short, for the solution was simple. Simple once you grant that a man possesses infinite loyalty, infinite courage in one lean and gangling frame. Biggs saw, I said, that there was only one way to save us all from death. Oh, he had blundered, yes, but we all blunder sometimes. But not all of us pay the penalty as willingly, as bravely as he did. Jupiter was upon us. Within minutes, we would have crashed into the greatest of the solar planets. Only Biggs saw a way out, and that was to make the speed of our ship exactly approximate the speed of light at the moment of impact. Dick saw. But how? He told us the answer. Mass energy relationships. You know the fundamental theory of the Lorentz-Fitzgerald contraction. Objects moving in space are contracted along their major axis in dire proportion to their speed, with the limiting velocity, the speed of light, as their ultimate limit. In other words, at the precise speed of light, the ship existed in only a unilateral dimension. Hansen said, "You mean we hurled over Jupiter?" "No, sir. We went right through it. At that tremendous speed, our dimensional extension was zero. Hence, it did not affect, nor was it affected in any way by, the bulk and mass of Jupiter. It's as though an exceedingly fine wire moving at lightning speed were to be propelled through a cake of ice. Only in our case, the wire was of zero dimension, and the cake of ice, Jupiter, did not even recognize that it had been penetrated." But I shook my head. But Mr. Biggs, realizing what this daring scheme meant, it meant that in addition to our size being reduced to the infinitesimal, our mass would be raised to the infinite. For that is the corollary of the contraction theory. There had to be some way of getting us back to our normal shape and size. The only possible method was by the forcible alteration of our mass. And Biggs adopted this method. He placed himself in the life skiff, gave the necessary order from there. Then, after the danger had been averted, he deliberately cast off from the Saturn, tossed himself away from us, a living sacrifice to the mathematical gods that we might be safe. Todd said, "Our mass for a moment was infinite, but when he, however briefly, broke clear, it became less than infinite, giving us a chance to cut the motors." That's right. Hanson's eyes were round and wild and fearful. "But then where is he? We've got to turn around and find him right away. We can't go back without..." I shook my head. "It's no use. He may be in this universe, infinitely small, traveling at infinite speed. He may be in some other universe undreamed by man. He may be living, he may be dead, but wherever he is, he's gone forever from the ken of man. Lancelot Biggs is dead, so far as man is concerned. He is dead." Dick Todd said something then. His words were not clear. They were choked, and he didn't finish the quotation, but I caught the first part. "Greater love hath no man," he said, and the skipper coughed, and his eyes were red, and he turned away, broken, aged man. "Amen," he said. "Amen." So Lancelot Biggs is gone. Dead, perhaps. Or in another existence, undreamed, unrecognized by we who spin our fiery tales along the spaceways. And it is a strange, strange thing to me that he, who of all men looked least like a spaceman, should have lived and died the greatest of them all. Tomorrow or the next day, I must tell Diane. Hanson will not do it because he can't. He dares not face her when she hears, and I, myself, would sell my soul to be free of that sad duty. But I was Lancelot Biggs' best friend, and this is the last thing I can do in his memory. There's nothing else to say. He is gone. Will I ever see him again? That gangling frame, that easy, fluent grin, lost in the nameless depths of the crypts of space. There seems nothing else to say except goodbye. And so I say it to the stars, the far-flung stars amongst which, somewhere, is the finest man I ever knew. Is it goodbye, Mr. Biggs? Or is it only au revoir? And that concludes the story. Where Are You, Mr. Biggs? By Nelson Slad Bond. Thank you all. That was longer than anticipated, but it was a much more fun read. The temptation to say funner at times is greater than I should admit to. All right, I'm going to check where we are at. We are still at $5,658, and we are, for Patreon, still at the same number of humans, and that's okay. Tomorrow is another day, and I have the bestest audience with all the clapping emotes. And I would like to scroll back through the history to see what all was going on, except I can't. There, I got the mouse there. Because I could see furious. There is so much clapping. I did not know there was this much clapping until I scrolled up. It is amazing. Much clapping. It is amazing.
Just don't read our Instro's messages.
That's exactly what I was scrolling up to find. So I normally would only ever say Uranus. I'm very careful about it, but I realized this was written by someone who clearly only ever says Uranus. And there was so much in this story that needed that pronunciation, and it was glorious. It was everything. Now, as much as I love you, and I do, we are going to be back here streaming at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and it is now midnight. I can't see the schedule from where I am seated, and I can't raid, and I'm really hoping that Keeper of Maps is there to type the raid command for us, because we need to pass on this community to another streamer.
We did get a raid request, though. Who knows if they're still live? Check the rewards.
Yeah, if you check the rewards, there was a raid request, I'm told.
18 days ago? Oh, was it 18 days ago? Never mind.
Never mind. Never mind. If Broken Symmetry is around, Broken usually has a good suggestion. If not, I'm just going to say that's it. Let's go to Christy Cates. Let's raid Christy Cates. There. Everyone is saying the same thing at the same time. It's brilliant. All right. So wherever you are in this world, have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon. Thank you for being here today. And somewhere, somewhen, in fewer hours than I care to think about, we will see you on the other side. Bye-bye, everyone.